And joining us now from Brussels is Ukraine's ambassador to NATO, Ihor Dolhov. Ambassador, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, these unity talks which have taken place in Kiev have ended, and we are told that they ended inconclusively. So what's next?
What's next? To continue to find ways for common grounds and to calm down the situation. And, of course, the main aim, as for today, is to conduct presidential election in a very good manner, efficiently and transparently on the 25th of May.
Okay, you talk about finding common ground, but how can these talks be held in Kiev without representatives of those forces in the east, rebel forces who are pro-Russian, being at the table as well?
Well, it's a national-wide dialogue, and at this stage we do not expect that representatives of Russia will be involved. And as you know, it is also agreed the next round probably, most likely, will take place in Donetsk, or at least at the region. So there is an approach to the common understanding, but the only thing we should understand that it's impossible to discuss any issues with those who came with arms and who continue to, to be heavily armed, to keep buildings, to seize people, and to conduct an activity which cannot be considered otherwise than terrorist activities.
Right, but are you telling us now at the next round of talks, which you say will probably be held in Donetsk, there will be representatives from these pro-Russian forces at the talks then?
What is pro-Russian forces? We should understand what we are talking about. There are different groups, different parties and organizations which are not always united, and it is not always possible to recognize who represents whom. And with all those who want a dialogue, we are ready to talk, but not with terrorists.
Okay, you mentioned the election, which is slated for May 25th. That's 10 days from now. Can you tell me how Ukraine can have an election when as you've just described right now, there is so much violence, escalating violence and instability in the east of the country?
Well, it is important also to understand that instability is taking place not throughout the whole region. It's only some specific cities and locations. It is not everywhere. And the Central Electoral Committee is ready to open all polling stations as it was provided. And just today, Parliament of Ukraine adopted an additional law which is aimed to secure the conduction of elections in a legal and transparent way. So there is a possibility, there is a will of people, of population, to vote, and there is the only option for Ukrainian people to elect a president who will most likely unite the nation and to move the country forward.
You talk about the rebel groups being disparate groups, that they're not unified, that they're different groups wanting different things. What about the Ukrainian government? It's not an elected government, is it? It is a self-appointed government.
No, it's absolutely incorrect. This government was appointed in the parliament of Ukraine with a strong majority.
But didn't you overthrow the elected government? The elected leader was Viktor Yanukovych. He was overthrown, wasn't he?
He left the country many weeks ago. And in this situation, the only legislative body in Ukraine was the parliament. And parliament acted in a full compliance with the current legislation in Ukraine. And that is why it is absolutely groundless to state that the government in Ukraine, which is acting now, is illegal or somehow question its legibility. It's absolutely legitimate, approved and adopted and appointed by the current parliament cabinet of ministers.
Okay, I asked that question because, we had the German foreign minister who was in Ukraine. He wants to arrange a dialogue between Ukraine's central government and pro-Russian opponents in the east. That is the plan which has been drawn up by the OSCE, the Organization for Security in Europe. But your president, who, as I've just pointed out, was appointed, and you say he was appointed by Parliament, according to the Associated Press, said in Brussels, Ukraine has drawn up its own roadmap for ending the crisis and noted that the people should settle the issue themselves. Does the president not support the OECD plan, at least the OSCE plan?
We support all plans and all involvements which helps Ukrainian people to find a peaceful solution to this crisis situation. And this is not correct because, to my knowledge, yesterday High Representative of the OSCE also attended this first meeting, first round table. And we continue to count on the support of the OSCE, especially in terms of fair and free elections in Ukraine. And you know that we invited observer teams from all international organizations, and we expect that unprecedented number of observers will participate in observing Ukrainian elections.
Okay, I want to ask you about one other development in Ukraine, which has been widely reported, and I'm going to quote from at least one report which has been here in Washington. The Washington-based newspaper Politico, which is a political newspaper, is reporting that the youngest son of the United States Vice President, Joe Biden, will be joining Ukraine's largest private gas producer, and his name is Hunter Biden. Is that not a conflict of interest?
Well, it's difficult to judge. I'm not a lawyer. I do not see any conflict of interest, and I do not understand why a son or any relatives of any politician, be it Ukrainian or American or French or German, could be involved in other private activities, including business activities.
Yeah, but this is not just any son or relative
to decide what to do.
Right, this is not just any son or relative, this is the youngest son of the United States Vice President. I mean, isn't this nepotism at best and corruption at worst?
I see no any possibility to put the question like that. If you do not mind, let me refer to the example of former Chancellor of Germany, Mr. Schroeder, who after his term in office immediately joined Gazprom and one of the biggest projects of Gazprom himself, not his son or relatives.
Okay, I'm not sure I'll see the comparison there, but let's move on. What are your hopes now for what happens in the next few weeks in Ukraine?
Well, as I told you, the main event during next weeks in Ukraine is a good preparation for the election of the president. And this is the main task, it's priority, and of course we count that it would be possible to make additional steps to de-escalate the situation. And of course the crucial would be the position of our neighbors of the Russian Federation, and its activities undermines whatever can be positive on the ground. So with goodwill of all parties involved, it is possible to find a compromise, because it's a common vision that despite so-called different referenda, which took place in May, the majority of population continue to see its future within Ukraine. Yes, with more decentralized power, with more responsibility and powers of regions, but within Ukraine, not other solutions as it is being speculated right now in different places, especially in Moscow.
Okay, Ambassador Ihor Dolhov, thanks for joining us, sir.